Hey guys, welcome to Faz Radio. Let's get started.
You mentioned, the gamification of things and the Google glasses, and Apple, I guess, has some glasses that they're toying with putting out here in the near future too. You're going to have you combine the NFT gaming with like a Pokemon Go kind of thing. You could sell ads for every store that you walk by, and you could be, have characters run into these stores, and the money that you can generate from the ad revenue that way uh, could be immense. I mean, it's going to turn into basically commercializing everything. And to be able to have the people participating in this able to get tokens or rewards or something out of it, I think is fantastic. But that really does change the dynamic of how we live and work and interact with each other even.
I think I've said this to you in chat since yesterday when we started talking about this subject. I really think you need to go watch the movie Ready Player One. If you haven't watched it already, you're not acting like you have.
No, because we talked about it 11 o'clock last night, my time.
Well, that's why I said ever since our last chat. Ready Player One is a good example of some, I would call it some extrapolation of this idea into the future. But obviously they're making different assumptions and taking things a lot farther. But a lot of meaningful things happen in the virtual world in that game. And while the Ready Player One interpretation probably won't exactly fit mine or yours, it's good enough to get it across as to how rich a VR or even augmented reality experience could be, to work with well, I won't say to work with the real world, but as an alternate economy. It can be a very rich experience that you don't need to do things in the real world. However, I'd take it a step further, and I would say Ready Player One as an augmented reality experience makes the world more consumable and easier to navigate. If I knew that if I had VR glasses on, or augmented reality glasses on, or just an augmented reality feature of my existing glasses, and I'm walking around town, and maybe there's some danger happening somewhere near me, the very fact that the glasses could alert me to this would be a good idea. Well, my phone could probably do it now, but my glasses could probably, point literally where the spot was in my vision, where it might be. But I mean, there's so many applications that augmented reality can dovetail in with gaming, and I think blockchain is a very good platform or good resource to use for that, simply because blockchain makes it so that each individual is more powerful rather than you having to have a gaming or VR experience hosted by a company. If all of a sudden you could be your own bank and you could be your own VR provider and you could be your own details and provider and Oracle and so on, oh my God, you now have all the power that the companies had, but on an individual level. So I see gaming, blockchain gaming, as becoming that eventually. Maybe it's going to be 50 years from now. Politics really matters as to when this stuff gets implemented.
That's a really interesting take on that. I could see that that world, and that's where you have to decide: is that the right way to go? Is it not the right way to go? Are politicians and government's going to get in the way of that, because that takes away from their power? I think the governments and the regulators and stuff are going to have their hands full, because this is exponential. I mean,
I think they need to understand. I think they will be fine with it once they understand how their role can work in that. Right now, they are having to manage so many things to make the world safe for us, in a variety of ways. And the reason they're managing it is because the population isn't educated enough to do it. Um, if the population becomes educated enough, they have to make it open. They have to, one, get educated themselves, but they then have to realize what their place actually is in this new world. If they just want to keep you safe, maybe they will start to realize that they don't have to do as much as they did before. I think personally the government should set the standards. They shouldn't they shouldn't get into the policing. A lot of people don't like the government getting into the policing. So if you set the standards, then it's easier to monitor the blockchain for adhering to standards than it is for policing. Um, Policing could be done a variety of different ways. Heck, even all these coins could police themselves. So there's a variety of ways to police this stuff. The fact that the government is policing makes things a bit hard. I think they will be fine with it once they realize they have the same power that they do now by setting standards. And that might take them a while.
Do we even need representatives and senators anymore? We have governance chains right now where you could take your voting tokens, and we don't need representatives to vote on our behalf. They can propose things, and with your VR glasses, you can take your voting token and decide whether the infrastructure bill is a good idea or not, and throw your vote in. It's real time. It takes 35 seconds to get results. Problem solved, right?
So there's a couple angles there. When you say that, what you're really suggesting is that we change our existing system. And that's easier said than done. People seem to think that the system will get better if we change the system. I think something different. I think that we can re-envision the current system. So it might be right now that your senators and representatives do a lot of very specific individual voting themselves. But if you reimagine that role, then you can start saying, well, if everybody's plugged in, then the representative can be a conduit, a better conduit for all of our votes. So say, just for giggles, if we voted on every single thing every single day that the senators and representatives did, they would simply see how we voted, and on a daily, minute by minute basis or whatever, and then they could communicate that with other people and work out compromises and come up with solutions, come up with things for us to vote on. They may make less individual decisions of their own in the future and just act maybe as more of the representative that we originally saw them to be. That you don't have to represent your people in the same way through the years. It could be done differently. The more power the people have, really, the less the senators and representatives really have to worry about. They just, I think their job should be just to corral people and figure out the best way to make them effective. However, we still have the problems with politics where they realize how much power they have and they corral people for their own reasons. If we come up with ways to see through that or to counterbalance that, their job slightly changes, or their job might change fundamentally, but they're still their job is to cast the final vote. Or maybe they just facilitate the final vote. Maybe they don't do the voting at all anymore, but they facilitate it. There's all sorts of possibilities that they can do that are not enshrined in law that keep our current U.S. system working the way it was intended.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting all over the place with this, but
this is what Faz Radio is. We have
yeah.
we're talking about interesting things. I see this show as we're just everymen talking about what we see in the world, but we're halfway intelligent. And I certainly want to see the back and forth with us debating each other. I admit I'm very opinionated. That's why I guess the word Faz is on Faz Radio. I mean, you wouldn't have it without an opinionated Faz.
Oh, you have opinions, all right. So, um, when you look at blockchain for the future and you tailor life into a gaming, I think then you turn into what you had brought up at the very beginning of this cast, where you have the ability to get people to interact with people, to get people to interact with blockchains, for everybody to make a few tokens here and there. So what do we do with that once we have it? That's the
Well,
next
gee,
step in this evolution.
if
So
you gamify life, if you're making it more fun, gee, imagine that. Imagine all these jobs that we have right now that aren't very fun, and we're supposed to be happy with just being a construction worker, building houses for the man. Fuck that. Yeah, I want to gamify things. I want to make life fun. So yeah, if the concept of gamifying life makes it more fun, then it's successful. It's a
I'm not
win-win. What do
arguing
you?
that, right? I'm not arguing that, but what do you see? How does that affect? We talked about the in-game economics and the in-game economy. How does that affect us to where, like right now, let me put it in context so you understand what I'm trying to get across. So right now it's inherently difficult, more difficult to run your own business, right? Because if everybody owned their own business, then there would be no big corporations, because they need people who can seal up the boxes and ship them out and stuff like that. And nobody's going to want to do that if they're all on their own. So if we gamify more and more going forward, how do we then take that gamification and turn it into something that you can live on a daily basis?
Gee, there's so many ways. I'm not sure I could even.
It is, and that's what I'm trying to say is, boy, we're kind of walking into this territory, and you and I are here, going back and forth on whether $150 of Miranda swords is going to be worth it. But when you think about all these other applications that they're going to be building, we can't be the only two idiots sitting here saying, "Oh, wow, you can go into slap your virtual glasses on, and you could virtually go into Macy's and do all of your shopping and look up close at all the stuff if they have that, if
You
they
can
go and
already do
film
that
it."
online. What's the
Right.
difference?
Well, my point being is, so then you talk about a loss of jobs, because if everybody decides to turn the world into a giant Amazon store with virtual reality where you can look at this stuff and buy directly from there, how does that affect the economy?
Okay, well, first of all, let me not first of all, let me dispel this notion of the loss of jobs, because this is really irking me. My entire career, I'm a computer programmer. My entire career had its sole purpose of my entire career has been to put people out of work. How do I put people out of work? I automate what they do. Yet, it's kind of funny. For every job that I remove, when I automate their job, I create a whole lot more because people want to automate even more. It's like if I make it so that 10 so maybe in the beginning selling 10 widgets cost $10 to sell it. So of course you had to price them at $20 a widget. Selling 10 widgets costs $10. And then I come in and then I automate a part of that process. So now that selling 10 widgets costs $1. Great. Well, you can fire all those people that made those widgets. But then what happens is the boss comes along and says, okay, now that you can sell this many widgets for $1 a piece, I'd like you to sell 1,000 widgets for $1. Okay, so I go and work on that, and eventually we do that, and that winds up firing some people. And then now I got to automate more and more. And you're like, oh no, I'm putting all these people out of work. But what you're finding is that more of me keep popping up. More programmers keep popping up. And then not only that, the programmer jobs, they start specializing. And then we start needing support people. We start needing database people and blockchain people and all sorts of people and content creators and all that stuff. And you start to find that really all you're doing is changing the demographics of the workers out there. What you're really unhappy with, don't mean to speak for you, but what you, in the royal sense of you, what you're really unhappy with is the fact that demographic change is happening without your permission. And maybe you liked making those widgets and you want to keep making those widgets, but now you can't because the jobs aren't there and you have to retrain to be a computer programmer. That's what the royal you, I think, has a problem with. You have a problem that you have to constantly learn how to do something else. So then you learn how to go be a programmer in language A, and then of course language A then goes out of business because it's been automated by language B, and then you have to retrain again. Now that the whole problem of demographic change, I think, is the biggest problem of our society. We don't seem to really allow or adjust well to demographic change, whether it be social or with labor or whatever. It costs money to change demographics. It's just easier to train up new programmers than it is for existing programmers to, existing people who lost their jobs to become programmers, because it's harder to train older people or more differently skilled people. That's the real challenge. And that's not the fault of the person who's automating, because if it wasn't me automating, it would be somebody else doing it. And if it's it's the whole Luddite conversation, mechanization gets rid of older jobs. It's just, we don't do well with demographic change. And if there's anything that we need to change in society, is how to do that. I believe gamification actually addresses that problem with demographic change. Gamification causes people to want to change, and they wind up enjoying themselves at the same time.
Well, you're still racking up the wrong side of the equation. You're like 1 for 427 now for assuming my fears and my.
I said the royal you.
Yeah.
I made that clear that I'm not talking about you personally, but the people,
the general population. Yeah.
Well,
they
no,
don't.
when I
They
say
don't want to.
you,
No, they don't want. It's true though. They don't want to go out and have to learn something new. People are happy. Most of them are just happy going and doing whatever they do.
are they really happy? Are they happy working for the man and doing jobs that they don't like?
No, nobody really likes it. No, but they have to, see, because we live in a world where you have to do something, otherwise you don't get to eat or have a place to live. So you have to do something. Now, encouraging people to do more of what they want, and making the automation geared towards that. So, for example, we'll use your daughter, because that's the best example I got at the forefront of my head, right? She enjoys making NFTs art, right? So how do you automate that process to help her get her art out there better? So it isn't so much programming people out of jobs. It's programming and teaching people, we're here to program to make what you want to do easier, more profitable, and better for your own future. So you do have to kind of absolve yourself into that mentality. Unfortunately, the negative side comes out a lot of times. Oh my God, you're eliminating jobs. No, we're making the job that you want to do easier, better, and more profitable for you. And if you were to approach it with that, I think it would be a lot easier to get us to a point where people would embrace it and go with it, because then they could go do whatever they want to do and make life way more fun for themselves. Absolutely. I just think the way that we present it has to be different. And I think that instead of you working for the man, programming things that's going to make the company profit, and again, you being ubiquitous, you work for the people in the areas that you want to improve in life and the things that you want to see happen. So you need to be able to go program and do those things. And it does open it up the more that there is out there.
All right, guys. That's it for now. Signing off.